To the Nigerian journalist, thank you for your questions. And I can also hear your anger. You referred to 4 cases. I encourage you to give me that information and I will follow it up. But the purpose of your question was to suggest that Nigerians are a special category of people who are being victimized in South Africa by virtue of their nationality. Failing to distinguish between issues of illegal immigration and issues of criminality. Am I correct? These are cases that you mentioned in which you are saying Nigerians were the victims of crime. Well, you'll have your opportunity again. That I understood your question. I don't think I was mistaken. Your question was, there are 4 cases in which Nigerians, you have that information, you're saying we haven't acted, and these are 4 cases in which Nigerians, because they are Nigerians, have been the victims of criminality. Now, if that is the case, I'm saying you're conflating issues of illegal immigration with issues of criminality, and that you shouldn't be making that reductive argument. Okay. But I can indicate to you that we have a problem like your country. We have a problem of criminality. We don't look at the nationality of the victim. So I think that insinuation was improper. Now, you're also critical of one of the ministers, the minister in the presidency on this platform, because you say quite rightly that this is a sensitive moment and that we should all be acting in a responsible way to reduce the tensions. That is a two-way street. There is a lot of misinformation and inflammatory rhetoric being directed at this government. We need to have a respectful conversation with our partners, with our sister countries on the African continent, about the terms of migration into what is a sovereign territory of South Africa. We have to be able to have that conversation. South Africa was the last country on our continent to achieve its independence as a sovereign territory of the South African people that has a commitment to Pan-African unity. The decolonization project on our continent produced independent nation states, starting with Ghana in 1957. What does it mean to have a continent made up of sovereign states that also form part of the Organization of African Unity? We need to be able to have that conversation in order to ensure that our continent is united, that it prospers, that our countries are well governed, and that they are all committed to the well-being of their own peoples. That is what the last country on the African continent to be liberated, to achieve its independence, that's the conversation we are asking to have with you. So if you say you want to have a respectful conversation, you want to reduce the tensions, I agree with you. But that's a two-way street. We have seen a lot of inflammatory rhetoric on social media, and I would not exclude the political leadership of some countries. And I understand their concerns as well. So please convey the message to your citizens and to your leaders as well, that that is the sentiment that you experienced in South Africa. We, in this country, we supported all the teams, African teams in the World Cup. We're not confused about our identity and where we stand on important matters concerning our mutual interest. Thank
you. Let me invite the Minister in the Presidency, Minister Chavele.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Willie. There were two questions that were raised of what are we doing to engage with the missions or home countries to alleviate the problem of illegal immigration. For us as government, this is beyond the process of the repatriation and also the deportations and the continuous challenge that we're dealing with. When we were doing the post-cabinet briefing, we indicated that cabinet for almost over a year, when we were discussing before 2024 elections, when we were discussing the draft white paper on immigration, refugee protection and asylum seekers. And also when we're dealing with the revised white paper on immigration, refugee protection and asylum seekers. And also when we're dealing with the national intelligence estimate, and you'll recall that in the previous briefing, we also indicated the issue of illegal immigration has been raised very high in the national intelligence estimate. And our approach was, as Minister Kubai has indicated, that majority of the countries that we are finding their nationals or citizens in the country illegally do not even qualify to apply for either refugee or asylum status in this country. We indicated that we discussed the pull and the push factors for the illegal immigration into South Africa. It's part of the issues that Minister Cachalia has just referred to now, of the instability that makes the government not being able to protect their own nationals. That's why part of the challenge that we've had is people who do not even have a passport to start with, not that they've expired, and that because even the cost of the documentation, the cost is not on the South African side, the cost of the documentation, it's in their own countries applying for that documentation. We then also concluded that what is important, and it's our commitment, both as the current chairperson of SADC, as an active member of the AU, as the current chairperson of SACU, that we are committed to the Agenda 2063 of the AU of silencing the guns for the development, for the economic development of Africa. And our priority is saying Africa, a better Africa and a better world. And that means all of us as governments, we must commit to ensure conditions that allow economic development. In that briefing, we indicated, I think it was the the IMC briefing, we indicated that as South Africa, we're actively involved in the development projects, industrialization projects in Angola, in the Lobito corridor. We are also actively involved in the projects in Mozambique, and our companies have invested, South African companies, Sasol has invested this time. The number of South African companies that have invested in the African continent as part of that commitment. We are the first signatory, we are part of the first signatories on the African Continental Free Trade Area, because we have a commitment to industrialize Africa, because if we industrialize and develop together, the pull factors to South Africa will not take place. And our commitment, that's why we even in the members of SACU, when there was a debate around SACU, we worked on the reimagined SACU. We recently had the SACU summit in Cape Town, I think 2 weeks ago. And part of that commitment is the industrialization of the SACU areas, which is the Southern African Customs Union, which is amongst the largest customs union. And also in SADC, which we are hosting the summit now in August, and we'll host another one next year in August in South Africa again as the longest serving chairperson of SADC. Our theme is focused on the industrialization of the Southern Africa. And we continue to mobilize our companies to invest within the region and within the continent to make sure that the development and the industrialization of the region and the continent is at a fast pace. It's for that reason that we also we have committed to fight against diseases. We are the only country in the continent that has contributed money in millions of US dollars in the fight against the Ebola disease, the pandemic that has come through. We remain the champion for a healthy Africa at the EAU, because we are committed to make sure that Africa develops and Africa is free of disease and Africa can focus on the industrialization, like Minister Cachalia has said. But all of us as governments within the AU, who are members of the AU, we need to commit to ensure conditions in our own countries that allow political stability, political certainty, and conducive conditions for economic development. Thank you.